All right, guys. I am not sure where we're at, but we're going to be kind of pulling this up to make sure that everything's on the same page. Pour myself another cup of coffee, and we're going to get started teaching today. We're going to be looking into beliefs and perspectives today. And I know some of us probably haven't really put this into perspective as far as perspective. There it is. I'm going to use that word a lot today. As far as everything that when you think about the business of like coaching and the business of kind of the consultation and everything, so many of those coaches and consultations inside the business, they always tell you to start with your goals, to be able to have this conversation, this idea about mission, vision, values, and I'm very much a big believer in that. I teach a ton on mission, vision, and values in my own space, and so for me, it is a very, very big deal. The other side of that coin, though, is that there's another piece to the puzzle, which is the beliefs and perspectives. And you don't hear very many people really seeing anything. You don't see anybody really teaching that because it gets into the second level of kind of the intimacy of your business. And so that's what I want to really talk about today. I'm going to type in here. You can leave your questions in here if you want. I am live on YouTube today, so if you're joining us, it is a little bit different than what we've done in the past. I'm checking everything out real quick on my end just to make sure we're all checked up and we're all ready to go and that we've got all of our ducks in a row. So really excited, though, to be back into the swing of things, teaching and doing some of this live conversations. But yeah, so just giving it a second for everything to catch up, and then we're going to get started here today. And again, we're going to be talking about the beliefs and perspective side of establishing your company's mission, vision, values, beliefs, perspectives kind of scenario. And again, there's a lot of great companies who take it this extra level. And I think this is where a lot of the thought leaders really look at in their world. They want to take it to this next level. They just don't necessarily call it beliefs and perspectives. But if you think about some of these great thought process leaders, when they kind of come back into the idea of culture, when they come back into this really this mindset of how do I take what I'm doing as a business and make sure that, like, not only do we have this place that we're going in this mission, vision, value side, but that we have this this culture piece on the back end that is proof of who we are, how we operate, and all that stuff. So, my goal was actually to be going through this this kind of thing throughout December, just to help people get reconnected back to what are you going to be doing in 2021? What are you really going to be doing to help open up your world? What are you going to do to help figure out what it is that's going on in your space? And how are you going to stay connected to that? How are you going to stay tied into everything? How are you going to make sure that what it is that you're doing is going to come to fruition as much as you possibly can predict, right? I mean, 2020 has been an incredibly strange time for a lot of us. It's been a huge blessing for most of us, to be honest, if you really think about it. I know it's not easy to walk through what we've walked through, and yet if you really just peel back the layer and say, what were my blessings from this year? My guess is that you'll be able to name more blessings because of some of the adversity that has happened, more so than you could in any other year. Now, granted, you're also going to be able to pile on some of the challenges that you've had, but I do think 2020 has been a great year to give us just a glimpse of why we are grateful for what we get to do on a daily basis, the people who are around us and all that stuff. So, but yeah, so looking at mission, vision, values, guys, that is a really necessary piece. And so I'm going to share with you my own beliefs about mission, vision, values. See, when I think about what's happening with mission, vision, values, which is the precursor to the beliefs and perspective side of things, is that our mission, vision, values, that, and even the beliefs perspective side, that is the inside of us manifesting into what we want to become, right? So it's the inside of us manifesting into what we want to become. And so whether we're working for somebody or whether we've started a business or any of that stuff, when we look at the work side of our life, right, and we spend a ton of our time inside of that business box, if we begin to unearth what is inside of us and that becomes our motivation for the day and our motivation for the week, for the year, for really getting into the next level of what we want to become, we can take the insides of us and portray them and put them on the outside. And here's why I look at it in such a strong way, at least for me. When I watch what's happening inside of the business world, and there's nothing wrong with it, it's just my own perspective coming into the working arena. But when I look at it, and when I began to start the career path, there was just more that I wanted. There was just something a little bit more that I was desiring. And it's not saying that what was happening isn't wrong, but there was just something more. And so as I have, I guess, just grown up inside of being in the business arena, what I watched was a lot of people trying to duplicate what they've seen in successes in other people, which is a great methodology to be able to be successful, follow the path of those who have gone on before us. It is something brilliant to be able to stand on the shoulders of giants, those who have gone before us, learn from their mistakes or from their successes, and to be able to move everything forward. And yet there's always going to be something, in my opinion, that's going to be missing in that equation, and that's you. If I really look at it and I want to emulate somebody else, well, I'm taking my own self and I'm putting it on a shelf and allowing me to develop and to build habits that belong into somebody else's arena. We may have some similarities and we may have some likes for each other, but the reality is if I only ever copy what's happening around me, I'm losing my sense of self. And so I begin to talk like those things, and I begin to act like those things, and I begin to manipulate my own world to be those things because that's what I've seen, or to follow success. I do find a challenge in that. So if I really want to become the best version of me, well, then I need the best version of me to be able to come to the table, to be able to put on the plate. And so when you give me these options for what I can do with my life, and these consultations for how I can be successful, and as I read these books and I see these things around me, I should be developing my own flavor inside of that. I should be developing my own mission, vision, values. If there's a way for me to be able to do lead generation following the example of somebody, I can still make it happen inside of my strengths. And the only way that we can really do that is to be able to have a very clear picture of that. And so my idea of mission, vision, values, and your beliefs and perspectives is that everything that we do inside of those elements are we're manifesting what we want to have in our life as far as like the business. Now you can translate this into the personal life, the spiritual life, and all that good stuff. We're just talking about the business element, is that I need to be able to draw those things out of me. So when I look at values, I don't see any challenges with you being able to say, well, the values in my life are X, Y, and Z, and to have weird language in there like, you know what? Our company values love. It's like, well, that's weird in most every other business arena, but why can't that be one of the values that you bring to the table? Because the values that I have, those are going to be the people, right? Those are going to be the people that I have relationship with inside of my business. So why not define your values for the things that bring you the most joy and the most excitement? The caveat to that, I don't think there's any challenges with, but you have to have an idea and understanding of this, is that your values cut off a certain chunk of what's available to you inside of your businesses, right? So if I value these 5 things, well, the people who don't fit inside of my value will never work for me. The people who don't sit in my values, they'll never be my clients, or they'll never be my clientele. They'll never be my consumers, my customers. And so we have to be able to understand that. But how beautiful is it to think that like I could truly define the people who I get to interact with, and they get to be exactly the kind of people who bring me joy, who bring me strength, who help me be stronger, better, and all those good things. So mission, vision, values, you'll find all the time everywhere. And you'll see people talking about every single time you open up any kind of blog or anything. But what you don't always find is the beliefs and the perspective side of thing. And I want to give kudos to the company that I used to work for, which is Keller Williams. They're very serious about understanding and bringing their beliefs and their perspectives to the table and making sure that everybody understands those things. And here's why that's really important. When I look at the beliefs and the perspectives, it is that moral compass coming to light. Okay. So the beliefs and perspectives is the moral compass coming to life. It is the culture being talked about and spoken about very clearly and openly. And here's what I think about. So when you, if you've ever read any books on communication and relationship communication, right? So if you've ever read any books on communication, there are things that you've got to be able to discuss. Like if you've ever been married, you come into this marriage and the both of you have this different version of what your beliefs and what your perspectives on life are. Okay. Your goal, because there is this love, because there is this spark that is growing, your goal is to say, okay, how do we talk about these things and how do we make sure that like we can speak about these things and let them define what we are going to be and who we are going to be as a family? Or is this where we kind of break loose? And so I want you to think about that. It's how are we going to continue to use these as a bond, or are we going to break loose? Now that doesn't necessarily mean that I have to change my opinions. It doesn't necessarily mean that I have to change my beliefs. It just means, can we coexist with this belief system? Now, there are certain things that you can't inside of marriage. It's a little bit easier inside of business. But if you came to work for me, or if you were going to be a consumer or a client, and you knew the backbone of my business was inside of my belief systems for how I treat my employees. This is how I treat those who are working with me. This is my counterparts. This is how I treat my management. This is how I treat and how I act and how I interact with everybody who comes into contact with me. That's kind of sitting inside of that belief system. And so if this is who I am, and if this is how I want my business to be, and this is how I want to act and interact, well, it gives a new level of intimacy. Like your clients and your consumers get to know you a little bit deeper and a little bit better. And it continues to pull that funnel into the people who are with you are only going to be those who edify your mission, vision, and values. So your belief systems and your perspectives, but your belief systems we're talking about right now, they're always going to edify your mission, vision, and your values. Now, here's the thing is that there's not, I think, or at least in my opinion, right? There's not a perfect or a school of thought that is better than any others on creating your belief system. This is, I think, where we have to work this out inside of ourselves a little bit. And this is why I think it's really a little bit more difficult for most business people to start to bring this to the table and to help people work through it and to figure it out, because it is a little bit more sticky. It's a little bit more messy. There's some past filters that can come into play. So there's just a lot of elements that can get a little askew. It's easy for me to continue to direct you how you're going to create a mission statement for what you're going to do in your business. It's a little bit easier for me to help you sense and see and move towards a vision in your business. Where are you going inside of that business? It's a little bit more difficult once we start to get into these value conversations. Well, once you go beyond that values conversation into beliefs and perspectives, well, that can change a lot of things really fast, because it is who we are and how we are. And so I want to read for you, so my belief system, just so we can have an understanding of what a belief system is. I'm going to read mine. So this is the brokers that I run. I'm a broker for a real estate company, RORECO. You'll see that's what it is. But here are my belief system. Family is always first. We are all better together. We put our clients at the core of every decision. There is always a path forward. We will always have a choice to do the right thing. Be upfront and honest always. Communication first. Follow the 24-hour rule. Empathy and kindness are our virtues. And do what you say and follow up. Those are our belief systems. The way that I began to develop and think about through those and have those inside of our business and truly make sure that it is a cornerstone of our business. I just sat down and I said, okay, from who I am creating this business, what are the things that are most important for me in the backbone? Again, kind of come into that idea, that backbone, the support system for my business. If I'm going to have values, if I'm going to have vision, if I'm going to have mission, that's a great thing for a business. And it's a great thing to move towards what I want out of a business. And it's easier to talk about profitability inside of that. But when I get into the next core of what I want from business, it's not necessarily always about money. It's not always about time. That's when you start to fit into that feeling where So I meet with a lot of agents, and almost always I start to go into the money conversation because this really is important for you to understand that money is good for the good that it can do. And you have to be able to have money to get to where you want to go. But I also understand that like most people get into real estate, not all of them are just motivated or driven by the money aspect. So many of them, and at least those who are attracted to us and attracted to our company, the conversations that I have, they almost always are saying, for me, Randy, I know that it will come if I start to produce or if I start to act or if I start to get into the rhythm of real estate. I know that I can get to that point, but like I really want to do this because this is one of the first careers as I've researched that I can truly help somebody to redefine like their direction in life. I can really help people find incredible amount of joy, an incredible amount of success. And so they begin to think about and talk about all those what we call soft skills and the ideas of relationship with our consumer. And when I look at that, that's where those belief aspects are going to start to come out. That's where we can start to really see the culture of it. And so if somebody really was looking at like, Randy, I want to be a company that is X, Y, and Z, where you're going to see some of those things trickle into their values. You may see some of it happen in their vision. You're going to mostly see the business idea happening in the mission. But like when you get into the perspective and when you get into beliefs, you're going to get just an eagle eye view straight into who I am as a person, what I want to do, who I want to be with me, and like that relationship aspect. And so in a relationship world, I think it's good to come back to this idea of beliefs and perspectives. And some of it is just wrestling with what do I want to become inside of this business or this job that I have? What do I really want to come? It's that moral code. It's that creed. Again, I keep doing this, but it's that backbone to what we're doing. It's not about just always looking at the profitability. That element is, no, this is our relationship. Like without relationship, none of it happens. And we have to define what it is that I want out of all of those relationships that I get involved with. And that's from being a boss to being an employee, to being a cohort, to being a peer, to being all of those things happen, and they happen inside of those beliefs. I think people will choose to come work for my company because of those beliefs. And I think people will choose to walk out of my company because of those beliefs. And I think people will choose to hold me accountable to who I say I am because I've written down my beliefs. When I look at creating a belief statement, I think it's so important, and it can be outward facing to the consumer or it can just be inward facing to the company. But the reason why I think it's so important is that if you really are doing what you're doing because you want to find fulfillment in who you are, there's that level of fulfillment, that hierarchy of needs that's coming around the corner. And you're like, man, I don't just want to always do something to be able to get more time or more money or something in that selfish category. I want to be in a space that I can give abundantly, freely of who I am, to build the relationship, to put the profitability question to the side for just a second and look at like who I am and who's with me, and to really find myself just in that box. I think you have to be able to understand and to write down and to be able to build into your beliefs. And so if you're running a company, when I look at beliefs, I'm looking at two different segments of beliefs. One is, how do I want the people who are with me to be able to act and interact with each other? And two, how am I going to act and interact as authority? Because when you look at that, why I say those two things, one is that authority element. So often we have challenges in work because of misaligned or miscommunicated authority. And so if I have my belief systems very succinctly put into place, there's never a time when authority can't be challenged in a healthy way. So if I'm looking at my beliefs and family is always first, well, that's going to be a really easy conversation for me to have with somebody who may be neglecting their family, or on the vice versa, somebody who comes to me and says, hey man, I think you're neglecting your family, or communication first, follow the 24-hour rule. If I let something fester or somebody lets something fester and we get to the point where that's become just cankerous in our relationship, well, then I wasn't following my belief systems, and I can get called out on it. So that authority side of things is a really necessary piece to the puzzle, but it also defines how people act and interact with each other. From my beliefs, I can go to somebody and have the conversation about job performance, or I can have the conversation about how people are treating people, which comes into a big piece to the puzzle for most of us and what we want out of a business. And so the beliefs, it gives us accountability back towards to be who we say we're going to be and to move in that direction. So when we begin to write out our beliefs, what I think happens is at first we're going to write the things that are really important to us individually. So these things are really important to us. If you look at this list, these are all things that are really important to me. And as I started working out through some of those things, what I did is I did my second, so that was my rough draft, all the things that were important to me. I did my second draft and I was like, how did I wish other people acted and interacted in my previous businesses? How do I wish people acted and interacted in the previous businesses? Like, so my bosses and my coworkers. And I began to think about some of those things. And I was like, man, one of the biggest elements is that, like, so often the breakdown happened because of people creating their own vain story around what might or might not have been happening. And so when I had the idea of kind of getting in this communication first, follow the 24-hour rule, I am borrowing a couple of ideas and going into one job where the guy communicated so poorly that he pitted us against each other. And I was like, I will never live in an environment like that. That does not bring health. And so that's not a belief system in my world. It has to be communication from this level of just first, like, go in and have the conversation. And to do it in a timely manner, following 24-hour rule. When I worked for the Paul Mitchell, the school here in Houston, that's one of their big pieces. If you don't speak of something that was a challenge in 24 hours, then you have to let it go, which just forced you to be able to have better conversations faster. It wasn't always the perfect conversation, but having it early versus like letting it fester was always good. I'm like, gosh, that's such a great, to me, belief system. This is how I want people to act and interact with each other. And so the next one right under that is empathy and kindness are our virtues, though. So the belief systems are kind of like the fruit of the spirit, if you will. So if you ever were to read the Bible, there's a passage that talks about the fruit of the spirit. Those who are in tune or in line with their belief systems, the fruit of the spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Well, you can see the fruit inside of the people. Like, you can tell people who are fruitful. You can see fruit in their life. But one of the most important things is that it doesn't say the fruits of the Spirit. It says the fruit of the Spirit. So it's a holistic version of what's happening. Your beliefs are a holistic version. And so you can't have communication first, following the 24-hour rule, without also having the empathy and the kindness, because that's one of our virtues. And so when I'm looking at beliefs, you have to first dig that out of yourself, see where that lines up, take your past experiences. And some of you may not have past experiences, and you get the opportunity to borrow and or create. It's going to create a little bit of a turmoil because you may find that you readjust your belief systems from time to time. But follow, like, who am I? And like, what do I truly believe? What have I done inside of my career thus far that was a learning experience that now that has to be something that happens inside of my business? That's a belief system for me now. Like, I believe that people should be doing this and this is the way it should be done. Well, that's probably needs to be worded somehow inside of your business. Follow those two elements, and then just to continue to refine. I know that that's one of the easiest kind of cop-out is like, well, just write it down and refine it. Your teacher's like, write a first draft and then write a second draft and write a third draft. It's like, all right, so how many drafts do I have to write until I actually get there? The reality is that, like, they kind of had something going there. You are going to be ever evolving and ever evolving and ever changing. My beliefs inside of our family, inside of my relationship with Ellen, the core of them have not changed, but who we are has changed very dramatically from the day that we met until today. And so you have to revisit and refine that, and you have to understand and put some conversations behind it. And so it is, I think, if you take who am I, like, truly at a core, what were my experiences? If you start to wrestle with those things back and forth and to start writing those things out, you're going to come up with, what are the belief systems that I have inside of my business? More than likely, you're going to see a little bit of that trail. So the belief systems begin to connect all the things that we're talking about or that we're dreaming about inside of our values and inside of our vision and inside of our mission. And then the last thing is going to be on the perspective. And so when I look at perspective, right now we are a country divided in the idea of perspective, and we do not allow people to have their own perspectives. We do not allow them to be able to sense and to feel and to we judge everybody by their perspective. But in the reality is that my perspective is taking every single one of my filters thus far in my life and putting order to the way I act and interact with the world around me. That's my perspective. Take all my filters and I put them in order, and it creates the ability for me to act and interact with the environment around me. That's perspective. Taking all of my filters and being able to line them up and put order to the way that I act and interact with my environment. So when I look at perspective from that business idea, you're going to take and you're going to have like, from what stance am I at in operating my business? I'm going to read you our perspective. For the RORECO, for my brokerage, it says that we are a spirited real estate brokerage filled with agent advocates that give consumers back their power. We are fiduciaries, specialists, economists, and we prepare to help others first. That's our perspective. That's from my stance in what I look at, how I walk, how I teach, and how I run. When you look at we're a spirited real estate brokerage, you will find that every element of what I do, how I do it, the choices that I make, the way that I dress, the way that I act and interact and everything, I am taking that from my perspective. We are a spirited bunch. I don't have a lot of those like real tight cliche professional elements inside of what I do on the outward side. You'll see I'm goofy. I wear a t-shirt and a hat every day. I'm not showing up in a suit. There's nothing wrong with showing up in a suit, but that's just not who I am, because what I've filtered through the way that I want to act and interact, the who I want to be and what I want my business to look like. I'm a spirited real estate brokerage filled with agent advocates. That's a really big piece of the puzzle. We are advocates in this space. We are not tellers. We're not teachers. We're not prescribers. We are advocates. An advocate gives you the most information so that you can make the best decision for you and your family. That's what an advocate does. And it walks beside you. And when there's challenges, we pull out our swords and we fight for you. That's what we do. Regardless of the decision you make, we always fight for you. And then giving consumers back their power. That's something that I talk about all the time. It's just something that's inside of my filter. I don't think people, in all honesty, believe in this to the full extent that it would be a perspective of theirs. I think the consumer should have all the power. There are people who don't believe this and think that the agent should control some of the elements of it. I just don't, and that's okay. That's not, again, not right or wrong. It's just the execution of it. If it's filtering through your vision, if it's filtering through your mission and all that stuff, you'll have no challenges with the execution. If it aligns with who you are, you will just only ever find that basket of consumers to be in your business, that basket of employees to be in your business. This is further and further defining who we are, so that every single day when we wake up, and the people who love what they do, is because they have filled their life with a mission, vision, and value that moves in the direction that's most desperately theirs. They have a belief and a perspective that is the backbone, the moral, the creed, the compass for their business. And it is just done. It is set in stone. It is how they act and interact. Well, if that's what I do, and I hire and I bring in business based off of these elements, I will only ever be doing the thing that I love the most. The people who enjoy what they do the most, I guarantee you they have a very clear, defined look at what their mission, vision, values, their beliefs, and their perspectives are. So again, today was about beliefs and perspectives. I know I gave you a chunk on top with the mission, vision, values. I do think it's a precursor that has to be talked about. But when you take that belief system, how can I go in and say, who am I? How do I want interaction? How do I want to be interacted with? Who wins with me? How do you win with me? I take all that personal, all of my experience, businesses, where was the biggest breakdowns inside of business, and how have I read and coached myself through books or podcasts or all that stuff, and how do I take all those things and I meld them into taking my version of the beliefs first, sandwiching like the action and interaction with business, and refine that till I get my belief systems. And then perspective, again, perspective has taken all of the filters that I've had in my life thus far and creating a direction, a movement. This is how I interact with the world around me because of the perspective that I now have. This beliefs and perspective side of things is going to be fairly difficult, and it's going to feel incredibly personal. A lot of times when we get into the business teachings or coachings and stuff, we want to not have the personal side of it in there. I'm just from a different school of thought. I think, why not? If the business is built off of your dream, it should very much look like you. And the way it continues to look like you as it grows is to get the people around you who have that same tenacity for your dreams and your version. They don't have to be just like you, but they have to have the tenacity for what you've created in your mission, vision, and values. And then how they act and interact inside of your business will be found in your beliefs and your perspectives. So I hope this makes sense. I didn't see any comments come in. Wanted to make sure I've been kind of poking the side of my eye out over here at my live chat. I know a few of you popped in and joined us. Again, I want to say thank you so much for always coming in, seeing what we have going. If you are with us for the very first time, my name is Randy Olive. I run a real estate brokerage out here in Houston, Texas. Love every minute of it. If you ever have any questions about real estate or even joining something like what we have going on here, I'd be happy to have a conversation with you. Not all of my conversations are about real estate. I do a lot of coaching inside of my world. And so you can follow us, click subscribe, and then there's a little bell that'll alert you whenever we go live on our channel. And so cheers. I hope you guys go have a wonderful day. Looks like it's going to be rainy out here in Houston. Somebody out there find some sunshine and send some good vibes. So y'all have a beautiful day. And thank you again so much for joining us and being part of what we do here. I had see if I can get my outro. Look at me failing all over the place. My cursor has died. This will be interesting. If my cursor's gone, how do I turn off the stream? Oh, this is fun. Again, want to say thank you for anybody who's out there. And also, please don't make fun of me as I'm trying to figure out how in the world do I end the live stream when my mouse doesn't work. Oh, this is funny. Oh, there we go. All I do think, Crystal, thank you. All right, guys, y'all are awesome.